The rain drummed a steady, monotonous rhythm against the window pane, blurring the village into a smear of gray. Little Bunny sat on the floor, her pencil tapping a hollow beat against the sill. She had exhausted her books and built towers of blocks until they touched the ceiling, yet the room felt stagnant. A sliver of light caught her eye from the shadows beneath her bed. She slid forward on her stomach, reaching into the dust. Her fingers closed around a wooden handle. It felt warm, vibrating with a faint, steady pulse. She pulled it into the light. The bristles were spun gold, shimmering with an intensity that made the dim room seem to darken in comparison. She scrambled to her desk, grabbed a sheet of paper, and dipped the brush into a pot of crimson pigment. She drew a circle, thick and bold. As she lifted the brush, the red ink peeled away from the fiber of the paper. The ball detached, hit the hardwood floor with a sharp, hollow thud, and bounced twice. Golden dust rained down, sparkling as it settled. Little Bunny held her breath, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch the surface of the object she had just created. She did not stop there. The brush moved with a life of its own, dragging thick lines of color that solidified the moment they touched the air. She painted a pile of peppermint sticks and a diamond-shaped kite. They detached from the paper, hovering near the ceiling like tethered balloons. She reached for more paint, her eyes fixed on the vibrant shapes. A sharp rap sounded at the door. Little Bunny stiffened. "Little Bunny, wanna play?" Tommy's voice drifted through the wood. She looked at the floating kite, then at the brush. She lunged, shoving the golden tool deep beneath her blanket until the bristles were hidden. "I am busy," she shouted back, her voice tight. The door groaned as something slid across the floor. A half-eaten cookie rested against the baseboard. Push through the narrow gap. "I saved this for you," Tommy said. She stared at the cookie. It was a simple, sweet gesture, but it felt like an intrusion on her private kingdom. She looked at the glowing kite, then back at the door, and deliberately turned her back. The hallway outside remained silent. She sat alone, the air thick with the hum of her creations, waiting for him to leave. The evening air turned brittle. Little Bunny reached under her blanket, fingers seeking the familiar warmth of the golden handle. She retrieved the brush and pressed it to the paper, intent on painting a companion. She dragged the bristles across the surface, but the gold was gone. The fibers were stiff, coated in a dull, lifeless gray. No color bled onto the page. She tried again, painting a bicycle, then a rainbow, but the paper remained stubbornly flat. She tapped the brush against the desk, expecting the usual shimmer, but the wood felt cold and heavy, like an ordinary stick. The magic had evaporated. She stood up and walked to the window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. Below, the yard was a stage of motion. She watched Tommy. He was laughing, kneeling in the grass to help a neighbor girl tie her shoelaces. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a toy truck, handing it over with a wide, open grin. Little Bunny gripped the gray brush until her knuckles turned white. The silence of her room pressed against her ears, heavy and absolute. She looked down at the dead tool in her palm, then back at the laughter below, feeling the sharp, cold sting of a door she had locked from the inside. Little Bunny stepped into the yard. Her palms were damp, fingers trembling as she held the gray, lifeless brush out toward her brother. "Tommy," she said, her voice steadying. "I have something special. I want to share it with you." Tommy paused, a slow smile spreading across his face. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his own set of paints, and took the brush from her. The moment his skin touched the handle, a spark jumped. The gray fibers shivered. A blinding golden light erupted, pulsing like a heartbeat against the late afternoon sky. Little Bunny grabbed the other end of the brush, their hands overlapping. They ran toward the willow tree. She painted a massive, spiraling slide while Tommy sketched the frame of a swing set. As the bristles traced the air, the object surged into existence. Polished wood and sturdy rope snapping into solid reality. The swings began to sway on their own, catching a breeze that smelled of ozone and summer grass. She added a merry-go-round. He drew a trampoline. With every movement, the light grew more intense, turning the yard into a shimmering, golden playground. The air hummed with the weight of their combined work, leaving the grass beneath them transformed. The yard erupted in motion. Children from the village sprinted toward the willow tree, their boots thumping against the grass as they scrambled onto the slide and leapt onto the trampoline. Laughter rose into the air, a bright, melodic sound that seemed to make the golden structures glow even brighter. Little Bunny stood back, her hands empty, watching a boy swing high toward the branches. She had spent so long guarding the brush in the dark, afraid to let the light escape. Now, seeing the joy it sparked in others, the tightness in her chest finally dissolved. She understood. The magic was not in the brush itself, but in the act of giving it away. She walked to the tree, retrieved the brush, and wiped the remaining golden dust from its bristles. The wood felt warm, buzzing with a soft, persistent life. She carried it inside and placed it carefully into a wooden box. She took a scrap of paper, wrote "For sharing only" in bold letters, and taped it to the lid. She set the box on her desk. The bristles shimmered with a steady golden light that filled the room, no longer cold, no longer gray. She turned off the lamp and watched the box glow in the dark, her heart finally quiet and completely full.